Hello, it's Graham Coath with another My Music. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Lucy. But first, let's get ergonomic.
I need to get going, Mel. See you later.
And there you go. It's Lucy from the On Band. Hello. Thanks for joining me all the way from where are you joining me from?
Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada, which, you know, is a place that I know very well because the last business that I worked for had their offices in Toronto. So there we go.
So you're familiar. Awesome.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar with Toronto. And what's the weather like there in Toronto at this time of year?
It actually looks like a classic day in England today. It's kind of like cloudy, but it is warm. It's 20, 25, 26 degrees Celsius. Yeah. Nice.
Okay. And Lucy, you are one part of a trio, and the other two members are skirting around in the background.
They're skirting around, right? Yeah.
They said hi a minute ago. So just tell me who you've got there in the background.
We've got Steve Fall running around. He's the guitar player in the band, and Dan Cornelius, who is our drummer. And that is our core, our triad, I call it. And we're also songwriters. That's why I call it a triad, because we bring in ideas, come from each one of us and get developed as a band. And it's like free reign with who wants to kind of dabble in whatever melody or lyric or which is the cool part about this band.
Yeah. And you yourself, you sing.
I sing and play bass.
Play bass.
Yeah,
absolutely. When did you first pick up a guitar or bass guitar?
It was actually, I went straight to bass, which is probably not the usual. I as a child listening to music, something about bass lines always like moved me. I guess it was the low tone, the rhythmic nature. So I remembered bass lines from songs before I ever remembered anything else. And my first test, I was like, can I actually do this? And I was just started university at the time. I was probably 18. And so I didn't start early with it, but I knew I heard melodies in my head. I'm like, I got to learn an instrument. I thought, let me rent a bass. If I can play it, then I'll take lessons. If I can at least, and the song I was testing, I was like, can I play Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus? If I can play that bass line, which I figured it out real quick. And I said, I sound pretty good. I think I can do this. So, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So you were the generation like me that still remembered, when you had like your stereo and whatever, you actually physically had those equalizers where you could change the little thing.
You got it.
Yeah.
Like so you can move things. Yes.
Yeah, where you could move the equalizer. So you always push the bass up.
Oh yeah, always. You got it. Like in every scenario, whatever stereo, car stereo, home stereo, was like the bass needed to be up. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and then they started bringing out those different like for the car and everything else where it had a bass boost button.
Yes,
yeah, remember?
I do. Yes, I do.
And that was great because now you didn't have to fiddle anymore, but it was like boom.
Instant.
Oh,
exactly. There's something to be said. And people feel that no matter what language, what country, it's universal. It's yeah.
So where did music start for you?
I guess it would be, I originally, my parents are Italian, so there's a European background, definitely. And they had me, I was born in Australia because they moved there from Italy, got married, had me, but I don't remember Perth, Australia. I was 2 years old, came here. So I've been living here since age of 2. So I consider Toronto my home, Canadian. And music started here, and I did want to bring this up because interestingly enough, because we have our Canada in general was we have our indigenous people who were here before all the English and French and all the other multicultures, and it actually means in the indigenous language, Toronto means meeting place, and I guess that's what it's been for definitely when my family first got here. It's like a lot of their relatives and friends, but I'm gonna say for us, like even this band, like Steve's originally from the East Coast, almost right across the pond from you guys, Nova Scotia, which is on the Atlantic. Daniel was actually born in Epsom, England, and currently lives in New York City. Picture behind me here. And yeah, so we're actually pretty, and meeting place. Toronto is a meeting place and very multicultural. And music started here. Probably me. My first band was well, it was an all-girl band, and it wasn't planned. I just answered an ad, said band sounds like the Cult, and I like the Cult. And I was like, okay. And I was presented with a female singer and a female guitar player, and I didn't sing, but I was playing bass. And we were like, okay, we're an all-girl band. I was not planned. And we brought Steve joined that band for a brief moment in time. So that's how we met. That band kicked me out and kicked him out. And then we got together and started writing. All in Toronto. Yeah.
How did you get kicked out of a band? That's very, I mean,
you
that's
know
very
what's funny?
sloppy.
This is a funny one, and I'm not going to name names, but there was something about the singer in that band actually said to me, and I had no intention. I was like, not singing was not, but she said, Lucy, the way you play bass, it's like really melodic. I think you want to be a singer. That's what she said to me. And
right.
And almost like you're stepping on my toes. And I was like, what is she talking about? That's the last thing. And here it is, like, interestingly enough. Yeah. So that was a main reason, actually. Yeah.
That's the main reason. The fact that you play a melodic bass line is...
Yeah, they wanted very, simple, hold down the eighth notes and like a drum beat almost. Like, don't do anything like over and around that. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'll go with the melodic bass line anytime,
Right, I know. And I did have a drummer at that time who introduced me to Tim Foy. He was in that female band as well. And that was a good... I guess for my bass playing, because he introduced me to funk. He was like, here's Funkadelic and Parliament and Prince, and he listened to the hit the one, and I was like, oh my god. So this was, and when those when that band said whatever they said about my bass playing, he turned to me and he said, Lucy, you're doing nothing wrong. You're playing amazing. Like, so I was like, okay, it's not me. So
yeah, and you've got a bit of that. You've got a bit of that.
You got it.
In in what you're currently making.
Yes, I'm glad you hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, to totally hear that. I was listening to, just before we came on, I was listening to your latest, which is Underdog, but it was actually Soul Killer that really got me.
Oh, you like Soul Killer? Cool.
Yeah, because it's kind of that, you've got that guitar going in, and then the bass kind of offsets that underneath.
You got it. Yep, that bass line. Yep.
Yeah,
totally.
You see, cool. That's a bit of funk, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of funky punk.
Exactly, funky punk. Exactly, we got it all in there. Yeah, those are my influences. I can't hide from them. There's the punk rock was definitely. I think it's more of the mentality of being in a band. Was when I was like a kid. It was like punk rock scene was like whoa, and I'm like I want that. I like disco too, and then I like punk, and it was like not cool to like disco anymore, and. It was just the attitude. It was like, yes, like just being authentic. And so.
Yeah. Authentic's a word that I hear a lot from artists that I like. What does authentic mean to you?
It means playing music because that's what my soul is pushing me, that whatever I'm coming up with, it's not something contrived. It's like something I'm hearing and that's coming through. And I think for all of us, and without judgment as well, almost like, well, no, we can't write that because, that doesn't fit into this box of whatever radio or record label or genre. That's a big part of being authentic, is just creating music just for.
How far does that go though? How far does that go? Because if like suddenly one of the members of the band suddenly went, well, I really fancy doing a little bit of, Little Mermaid or something in
well, that's an interesting question. That's a very interesting, because if on our record, which will be released September 16th, there's a few little like I guess outliers, if you want to call it, in terms of deviating from the sound that you're hearing currently. There's one song, for example, was written in Florida, because this record was written kind of during pandemic in various homes that Dan had, which his parents lived in Florida. So we were down there recording as well. And that just being in that locale inspired a couple of songs. One of them being FLA, which stands for Florida. And that one is really a diversion because it's really based on a funk line that's like a total funk bass line. And it brings in just some funky guitar and some groovy drum beats. And it's, and no one really hated me for bringing that in. They kind of were happy that I did.
Yeah.
But so it's welcome is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. No one gets on each other's case like, oh man, that's too metal, which is a lot of the time that's happened. It's like, no, actually, it's fine because we create the on sound with maybe it's a metal guitar line, but maybe the vocal line is like something completely like a Beatle-esque melody over it. So it has nothing to do with so we really are, and I feel very it really helps the creative process because you don't feel limited.
Yeah, I think because it's a really dangerous place to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you start almost imitating yourselves.
Exactly.
If you're not careful, like you have a sound that you're producing in one particular moment, and you're happy with that sound in that moment, but then you start looking at yourself and criticizing yourself and go, well, that didn't sound like us.
Right. Like that's not us. It's like, well, what do you mean? We just created it. Like that's So
and that can take you into, I think that can take you into dark waters once you start going that way. So it's always good to push the boundary. I mean, look at I've just been listening to some Cure this afternoon.
Oh, awesome! Yeah.
You know this particular one. This is all the B-sides.
Oh, I don't know that they had. I didn't know they had a B-side compilation.
Yeah, this is Join the Dots. Is B-sides and rarities. There you
go,
people. If you ever want to, but that's the whole point. If you listen to the Cure over the period of their gestation, there were times where it was a little bit more commercial. There were times when there was the keyboards elements in there, etc. And then there's the elongated, more gothy type songs.
I remember one song from the Cure called "Never Enough," and it's probably one of my favorites. And it's got that real kind of dancey early 90s Manchester-y kind of, and then like bluesy guitar, like kind of a little bit off of what their norm was like. So I think those are the artists that people are like, wow, that's great. Same goes for Radiohead. Like they can just go in whichever direction.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it when the three of you get in a room together? What is it that sparks creativity between the three of you?
Let's see. That's a good question. I'm going to say it's so different and it's varied, but that we're all three of us are passionate about music, and that we've got melodies in our heads all the time. It's very rich. It's almost like there's so many song ideas that we have indexed right now that it's like, whoa, man. It's like, I can't wait to get to them because there's so much. So I guess the prolific nature of musical nature that we all have, and we're all passionate about it. Yeah. And we've been together as a three-piece in various forms, known each other for a long time. There's something to be said for that.
How often do you all come together with a solid idea for a song that's already there, a skeleton idea, or how often does it build off of a jam?
Oh, like every time we pick up an instrument, every time one of us picks up an instrument, there's an idea flowing out. Yeah, that's interesting question. It's not something we're going to sit here and write today.
Dan writes guitar parts with me.
Yeah, Dan, for example.
Steve flies to New York and writes with Dan sometimes.
We are during. Sorry, we got chatter in the back here.
But
because Dan lives in New York. Even though it sounds like it is a completely different country, it's really not that far. It's actually like a 8-hour drive, 7-hour drive, or an hour flight. So we have Steve and Dan have gotten together to just write guitar parts and write guitar music, because Dan also writes on guitar as a drummer. And they come back to me with, here, Lucy, we have 4 new ideas. Like, okay, cool. And I'll pick and choose parts for melody, for verses, chorus, something that hits me. So that's one way. So them two together is actually, they're pretty good together as writers. And then there's the 3 of us, and then there's the Steve and me. So it's almost like combinations of,
Yeah. By the time you've got to making the record stage, in terms of them working with a producer, how much creative scope would you leave a producer in that?
For the producer, that's a good question, because we've in this particular record we started recording in Star Sound Studio in Florida, in Fort Myers, Florida, with Drew Howard as our original engineer, co-producer, you could say. But we came in there with our songs pretty much arranged, and yeah. So I'm gonna say we're the producer. I think we're still waiting for a real, not real, I don't want to use that term, a producer that comes with us along for the journey of the songwriting and arranging. We haven't had that. We've kind of brought this to the producers in the studio, like Darius in Toronto in phase one, who brought it to another level with sounds and performances, a little bit to do with arrangements, but it was more, I guess we're the producer, I'm going to say.
Yeah, which is great. Would you enjoy it at some stage in your career if you actually took jams to a studio, and then someone else as the producer of that would go, right, I like that jam, I want you to put that with that and that, or would that mess with your mind completely?
It would be different, but I'm absolutely open to it. Especially if it's a producer that obviously, I respect and I've heard his work. I'm open-minded, but it would be very different. Yes.
Fantastic. In terms of how you achieve your sound, are there any little tricks that you've come across?
Let's see how we achieve our sound. That's I think, each instrument is, I know I like a certain tone of bass, it comes from my, either an Ibanez or a Fender or a Spectre. And I like Trace Elliott kind of thing. Which is English.
You like a warm sound.
You got it. Warmer sound. Yeah. There's certain amps that, I'll play them, but I don't love them, but I like a warmer sound. Steve has got his influences are, let's see, I don't know, blues, I'm going to say, and metal and funk, because he picked that up, and he teaches guitar. So he's all over, and he's just into his quality of instrumentation and his instruments. And
I play Friedman amps.
You play Friedman amps. He wanted me to throw that in there. Yeah, he said, yeah.
Yeah, Friedman amps. Okay, if you're listening.
Friedman amps.
Yes. And
he said Strats.
And Fender Strats are his go-to guitar.
And any new equipment you'd like to send it. What about pedals? You can mention pedals as well.
Pedals.
Is there anyone that's a pedal geek?
Yeah, that's Steve. He's the pedal geek. Which one? Do you want to throw some in here?
Yeah. So I love playing with my wah pedal. I have a Crybaby wah pedal, Jim Dunlop. And I also have some vintage pedals. I have some old MXR pedals that I like a lot. I have an old Phase 90. And I also use reissue stuff. I love the reissue MXR stuff is really cool. I'm also using Friedman pedals for gain. I also use an old Rat pedal for just a boost. And sometimes I'm also using electro harmonics. I like some of their pedals, some of their flangers and some of their delay pedals are really cool.
Cool.
You got the scoop.
Yeah, we got the scoop.
One more thing. I've got my vintage 73 Les Paul. I've got that. I just acquired that. My 68 SG. I'm kind of like, there's a war between Gibson and Fender for me right now.
Right. He's torn. He's torn. He doesn't really know which one to pick up at any given moment.
Torn,
he just has to. He has
versatile.
To feel. Yeah. Well, yeah, but then you just have to feel which song wants to be played on which instrument, right?
And that's it. Yeah, you nailed it.
That's just the way. In terms of vocals,
yes.
How did you get into the old singing?
That's funny. That's a funny question. Well, remember I told you the band who kind of kicked me out because apparently the vocalist thought I wanted to be a singer, and she was right. And I guess she was possibly correct. But when Steve and I started writing, it was instrumental, and then this was like for our first band, Acid Test, and we thought we got to audition singers. We were writing the tunes, we were recording them on 8 tracks and little back then, and we kept auditioning singers, and it fell through and it didn't work out. And we finally said, we got to record this. So we went to the studio and just started to record music. And the producer, Dominic Macri, at that time, actually said to us, well, Lucy, you have the vocals written out, the melody, why don't you just sing it? I said, what?
Well done, Dominic.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, Dominic, blame Dominic. So I said, well, I guess I can put it down and we could replace it. Like, sure, I'll do that. So we recorded Mr. Skin, and that song actually ended up on a movie soundtrack on the soundtrack called Highway 61 from Bruce McDonald, who's a pretty infamous Canadian director. Steve was actually played a corpse in that movie at the time. But we were on that soundtrack, and through that soundtrack, we started to get radio play at a pretty cool station in Toronto, CFNY, The Edge, and that we got signed from that. Warner Brothers came in because they saw us play, they heard that song, and here it is. It was the first song, I've never taken vocal lessons prior to that. And boy, could I do it better if I could do it today. But at the time, it was what it was, and it worked.
If you're a reluctant singer, then
yes.
I mean, do you sing around the house and stuff like that anyway? But yeah, you sing for pleasure.
I sing. I think I'm more of like, I hear music, I hear melodies in my head. So it's not. Yeah. I'm not going to say it's about the singing. It's about melodies having to come out. So yes. For that reason, I think that's why I picked up an instrument to begin with, because I just heard melodies. But I'm not going to say I'm like, and I know I'm not the ultimate like technical vocalist of Supreme, because that's not.
Did you have to learn to love your voice?
Yes, I did. Yeah. At first, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I think I tried to sound like the guitars. I always wanted to sound like the guitars, like that, and there's actually that comes up in live, because my range seems to fit right in the middle of guitars. To actually boost up vocals and decipher is a challenge for engineers and sound people. Yeah, vocals. I guess I really like the Beatles, how they kind of their range and how they sat with the music. It wasn't like, here's the vocals and the music's over here. It was like, I hear them as one.
Yeah, it's part of the piece of music.
Exactly.
It's not like, oh, this is just instrumentation to extol that vocal over
right
there.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's some amazing talent out there that it's just whoa. But I guess coming from the bands that I liked and that influenced me, being like the Beatles and the Stones, none of them have that we're gonna showcase the vocalist thing. It's not about that. It's about the whole.
Yeah. Do you feel you have more than one voice?
Yeah. I have that mellowy kind of like when it's a funky tune, I can get into like no rasp in there. And then when it's something that's like emotions coming out and aggression is coming out, it's going to come out in, definitely. Yeah.
Who are your favorite vocalists to listen to?
Vocalists, let's see. It ranges from, and it's quite varied. I'm going to say anything from John Lennon to David Bowie to Kurt Cobain to Michael Jackson to
it's quite interesting.
To Chrissy Hynde to it's so varied.
I was waiting for the females to come out there.
Oh, you're waiting for the females to come out.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting the name now. One female vocalist that we seem to. Patti Smith, yeah. Patti Smith. I just love her style and her tone. But I also like Karen Carpenter. I know that sounds weird, but she had this smoothness that just I'm in awe when I hear her voice. It's just
that doesn't sound weird.
Okay,
look, we're all just complete music fans here, so it's anything goes.
Yeah,
anything goes. But yeah, I mean, look, I used to grow up listening to her records or the Carpenter records in the car, because that was one of the only things my dad would listen to.
Right.
So we were quite devoid of music. But the one thing that did strike me, would have been her voice, because it's just so clear. It's just so
almost perfect that it's otherworldly, you know.
Well put,
There aren't that many people that can sing with that kind of tone that it's just there's almost it floats. There's kind of no
grating against it. It's frictionless. There's a great word for her voice. It's frictionless singing.
Great way to describe it.
Yeah, I actually quite like a bit of friction in a voice.
Me too. Yeah.
But you know, because you know it's angry, isn't it? And so I mean, and you know, and it's expressive. But she had it totally made in terms of her voice there. What's the ambition then, in terms of where you go further than where you're going at the moment? What's the great ambition? What's the legacy? Where would you like to leave the earth in terms of your music?
Great question. I guess it's more about songs and songs that that people will relate to, will want to hear. It's like those songs that you can list them, that you know, it's like they're timeless. So I would say to write timeless music that people would want to listen to at any point of that may bring up emotions or relate to their emotions, make them move, bring out feeling in some way, and as well as melody, capture melody that you want to sing along to. So yeah, but definitely the lyric part of it, I guess, something that that makes sense, that represents maybe the world. It's like a time capsule. I think that music artists are in pretty much putting out what is going on in the world in their time, and representative of that. And I hope to do that for what's going on. I hope to capture a feel, a sound, something that people can relate to and grab onto for this period of time that we're on the earth. Yeah.
I'm going to say I think there's something of Canada in your sound.
Something what?
Of Canada.
Of Canada?
In your sound. Now, I hope that doesn't sound weird, but the reason I say that is because I think your music would sound equally good in, you know, hot weather, driving along in the car, the window down, the sun's out, etc., but also on that cold day, hugging a coffee. Do you know what I mean by that?
I guess so, because we grew up like that. That's our life, that you've just described it.
And so there's something about your sound which is that, or you know, it's that and that. It's almost not. It's not spring. It's not autumn. It's
because we don't have a spring and autumn here. We hardly have that.
Exactly, and that's in your sound. Isn't that
funny that you pick that up? Yeah.
But I can hear that in the music. So it's either, for me, it's either, you know, a summery disposition, or it's a, you know, a kind of the harsh reality of winter. There you go. But the beauty of both of those.
And that is actually, if I backtrack and look at when we wrote the songs, they were either in winter or heat in Florida. So it's interesting, very interesting.
There you go. Maybe I'll just have a take on these things.
Interesting. Very good. Very insightful.
There you go. Now, before I leave you today, there's one question which I ask everybody, which, you know, I'm going to now ask you, which is, if you could work with anybody, alive or dead, who would that be?
Ooh.
This is where you get to just gush about, you know, your musical fantasy, really. And you feel free to surprise people as well.
It's almost like I can name a few, so I don't want to do that because you said one.
Well, there's a little bit of time limit, but you know, it's
okay. John Lennon.
Yeah.
I'll say John Lennon.
Why?
I think the way I described what I would hopefully like to do with just encapsulating the time, he did that, and he did that in and his voice was, he tailored it to each song, whatever that feel was, whether it was raspy or soft or melodic. I just like the tone of his voice, actually, and I love his where he comes up. Not to say Paul McCartney's a huge talent, and the combination made the magic, but he had that kind of just like, I'm a little bit off, and I'll just kind of like be the more I guess realistic one, and say it how it is, say how things are in the world, and not be afraid. And just like his creation of melody, how he approaches melody, and
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I think we might sound good together. Our two tones of voices.
I think you would, because it's there. It'll meet in the middle and it will carry the song
exactly
all the way there. I don't know. I'll leave you with this. I always try and leave guests with something to take away, to go and have a look in case they've never seen it before. Have you ever seen Bad News? Bad News. Have you ever seen the movie about Bad News, the band?
No.
Right. So it's a fake band.
Oh.
Produced by the comic strip, which was people like Ade Edmondson and Rick Mayall, etc. So think Spinal Tap.
Okay.
But later on, and they're a heavy metal band. Okay. And there is a scene in there. If you're a big John Lennon fan, you will absolutely corpse and love this to death. Okay. So there's a scene in it where this news reporter goes down to the basement where Ade, the lead singer, writes some of his songs, and he stands there with a keyboard. He says, "I'm going to play you my new song," right? And it was brought to me by the ghost of John Lennon. Yeah, and he starts playing, and he goes da 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 dum, and then he sings, "Imagine all the people," and she goes, "That's Imagine," and he goes, "No, it's Imogen."
Oh my god!
And honestly,
Imogen, I love it. Okay, now I'm gonna have to watch it. Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
Go and find that.
Okay.
I mean, it just, for me, it's just brilliant. There we go. That's your little thing to go and research, enjoy. Before you leave us, tell everyone where they can go and hear your music. Get your music.
Great question. The easiest, most straightforward is go to YouTube. Our channel is called On Band Song Underdog. So if you punch in On Band, Underdog is the tune, and subscribe so we can stay in touch with you. So yeah, go to YouTube. On Band Underdog's the first single. Please subscribe so we can tell you what's going on, and you will get all our other socials from there. And I will give you the website as well. For those of you who like to just go in there, onmusic.ca.
Cool. Brilliant. Yeah. There you go. And then buy everything that the band do. Just buy it. Don't stop buying it. Buy it more than once. Buy it 3 or 4 times. Then when they tour, buy the t-shirt, buy the tickets for the tour, just buy it.
Right on. Thank you, Jacob.
Well, that's right, because otherwise...
By the way, great questions.
Thank you very much. I just always have to tell people this, because some people think that music's magic and it just comes out of little black speakers, dot speakers around your house, and you just talk to them and the music comes out, and it's made by Smurfs. But it's not. It's made by real people, and they have to pay for instruments and food and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly. And keep doing what we're doing so we can just come out and play. And absolutely. Yeah, just going to YouTube and subscribing, that does a lot, believe it or not. Like that, just press that subscribe button, because then it's like, okay, we can keep in touch with you and let you know. And yeah,
absolutely, those small little things make all of the difference. Wouldn't it be funny? It would be so shocking, I think, for some people if they suddenly woke up one morning and found that there was no music there, because they hadn't been paying. Everybody hadn't been paying for it, and all of the musicians had just disappeared because there was nothing to sustain.
What choice do you have, right? Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point.
So people need to think like that, even though musicians would struggle on regardless, because the music just has to be made. That's not the point.
Right.
There's lots of music that doesn't get made these days because, unfortunately, musicians have had to go and get other jobs and give up. So just
survival.
Keep supporting. Thank you so much, Lucy, and your friends for coming on and talking to me today. It's been absolutely marvelous.
Awesome.
And I will keep plugging away your music